Lieutenant Marcus Walsh's head throbbed as consciousness slowly returned. The acrid smell of burning circuitry filled his lungs, and warning lights flashed across his ship's damaged console. His patrol mission along the outer rim had gone terribly wrong when an unexpected gravitational anomaly pulled his vessel into an uncharted system. The ship's AI crackled through damaged speakers. Warning, critical systems failure. Atmospheric entry imminent. Brace for impact. Marcus gripped the controls, fighting to maintain some semblance of control as his ship pierced the atmosphere of an unknown world. Through the view screen, he watched space give way to swirling violet clouds. The temperature climbed rapidly as his vessel plummeted toward a landscape of crystalline structures and emerald vegetation. "Come on," he muttered, pulling back on the stick with all his strength. "Just hold together a little longer." The ground rushed up to meet him. His last thought before impact was that no one knew where he was. No one was coming to save him. When Marcus next opened his eyes, he found himself surrounded by the most striking beings he'd ever encountered. Tall, athletic figures with silvery skin and elaborate facial markings stood in a loose circle around him, brandishing sophisticated energy weapons. But what caught his attention most was that they were all distinctly female. Their leader stepped forward, her face adorned with intricate purple markings that seemed to shimmer in the alien sunlight. She spoke, her voice melodic yet commanding, in a language his translator couldn't decipher. Marcus raised his hands slowly, wincing at the pain in his ribs. "I come in peace," he said, knowing how cliché it sounded. "Lieutenant Marcus Walsh, Earth Defense Force." The leader's eyes narrowed, studying him with scientific curiosity. She touched a device at her throat and spoke again, this time in halting English. "I am Commander Selena Dax of the Nixaran Defense Corps. You are the first male being we have encountered in over a millennium." Marcus blinked, processing this information. "First male? How is that possible?" Selena gestured to her companions, who lowered their weapons slightly. "Our species evolved beyond the need for male genetics centuries ago. Yet here you are, a living embodiment of ancient myths." Before Marcus could respond, a distant explosion rocked the ground. Selena barked orders to her squad, who immediately formed a defensive perimeter. Through the trees, Marcus glimpsed other figures moving, their armor darker, their movements aggressive. "Raiders," Selena explained tersely. "They seek to capture you, believing male genetics hold some mystical power. We must move quickly." Marcus stood, ignoring the pain in his body. "I can fight. I'm not helpless." Selena's expression shifted to one of surprise, then approval. "Very well. But stay close. Our weapons are lethal, and these forests hold many dangers." As they moved through the alien landscape, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at the efficiency of Selena's squad. They moved like shadows through the crystalline vegetation, their movements synchronized with centuries of training. He noticed how they communicated through subtle hand signals and facial expressions, their coordination perfect. The raiders attacked without warning. Energy bolts sizzled through the air as Selena's team engaged the enemy. Marcus found himself fighting alongside these alien warriors, his military training complementing their tactics. He watched in amazement as Selena took down 3 attackers with graceful efficiency, her movements almost dance-like in their deadly precision. When the battle ended, Selena approached Marcus, a new respect in her eyes. "You fight well, for a male." Marcus couldn't help but smile. "You're not so bad yourself, Commander." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by the arrival of a massive hovering vehicle, its design unlike anything Marcus had seen. More Nixarans emerged, these ones wearing what appeared to be scientific attire. "The High Council wishes to study you," Selena explained, noting Marcus's apprehension. "They believe your presence here is more than mere chance." As Marcus boarded the vehicle, he caught Selena watching him with an unreadable expression. He'd crashed on a world where his very existence challenged their fundamental beliefs. Now he had to navigate not just survival, but the complex politics of a society that had evolved beyond what humanity considered normal. The vehicle rose smoothly into the air, carrying them toward a city that gleamed like a jewel under the alien sun. Marcus Walsh, lost among the stars, found himself at the beginning of an adventure that would change not just his life, but the future of two civilizations. "Commander," he said, turning to Selena. "I have a feeling this is the beginning of a very interesting diplomatic situation." Selena's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Lieutenant Walsh, you have no idea." The Nixaran capital city of Luminera stretched toward the violet sky, its crystal spires humming with bioorganic energy. Marcus stood before the High Council chamber, acutely aware of the dozens of silver eyes studying his every move. Chief Scientist Raven Nova approached him, her movements precise and clinical. "Fascinating," she murmured, circling him slowly. "Your physiological structure is remarkably efficient, despite its primitive nature." She reached out to touch his arm but stopped when Selena cleared her throat. "Perhaps," Commander Dax interjected, "we should begin with less invasive observations." Her tone was diplomatic, but Marcus noticed the subtle warning in her stance. After the battle in the forest, she had appointed herself as his unofficial protector. High Counselor Thura Vale rose from her crystalline throne, her elaborate robes catching the light. "Lieutenant Walsh, your presence here raises many questions. Our society has flourished without male genetics for centuries, yet your abilities in combat suggest advantages we had not considered." Marcus chose his words carefully. "On Earth, genetic diversity is considered a strength. Males and females each bring different perspectives, different abilities to our society." A murmur rippled through the chamber. One council member, her face marked with stark geometric patterns, leaned forward. "And how does your world maintain order with such chaos? Surely the competing hormones lead to conflict?" "Sometimes," Marcus admitted. "But that tension also drives us forward. Innovation often comes from disagreement, from different viewpoints challenging each other." Chief Scientist Nova's eyes lit up. "Perhaps we should study this concept more closely. Lieutenant, would you consent to a series of experiments? Nothing harmful, of course. We merely wish to understand." Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Security screens materialized, showing a disturbance in the city's lower levels. A group of raiders, more organized than those in the forest, had breached the perimeter. "They seek the mail," one council member hissed. "His presence destabilizes our society." Selena stepped forward, her voice firm. "His presence exposes weaknesses that already existed. These raiders have long opposed our progress. They simply found a new excuse." High Counselor Vale nodded slowly. "Commander Dax speaks truth. Lieutenant Walsh, will you help us defend our city? Not as a specimen, but as an ally?" Marcus met Selena's eyes, seeing the challenge there. "Of course. Though your weapons are different from ours, combat tactics have universal principles." Over the next hours, Marcus worked alongside Selena and her elite guard to fortify the city's defenses. He found himself impressed by their technology, force fields that responded to thought, weapons that adapted to their users' fighting style. In turn, the Nixarans seemed fascinated by his more direct, tactical approach to combat. "Your methods are unorthodox," Selena commented as they prepared for the raiders' assault. "But effective. Perhaps there is something to be said for instinct over pure logic." Marcus helped her calibrate a defensive barrier. "That's humanity in a nutshell. We're not always logical, but we're adaptable. It's helped us survive countless challenges. Like crash landing on an alien world and immediately joining its defense force." There was that almost smile again, the one that made Marcus wonder just how much emotion these beings allowed themselves to show. The raiders struck at twilight, when the city's crystalline structures reflected the light of Nixara's twin moons. Their attack was coordinated, sophisticated, clearly the work of professionals. But they hadn't counted on the combination of Nixeran technology and human tactical innovation. Marcus found himself fighting back-to-back with Selena, their movements synchronizing naturally. Her energy staff complemented his hand-to-hand combat training, creating a defensive perimeter that the raiders couldn't penetrate. "Your society may have evolved beyond males," Marcus said between breaths, "but you never lost your warrior spirit." Selena dispatched another raider with elegant efficiency. "Perhaps we simply needed a reminder of what we once were. Progress doesn't always mean abandoning the past entirely." After the battle, as the city's automated systems repaired the damage, Marcus stood with Selena on a balcony overlooking Luminara. The alien moons cast everything in shades of silver and purple, making the scene look almost magical. "Your council wants to study me," he said finally. "To understand what makes human males different." Selena turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "And what do you want, Lieutenant Walsh?" "To understand you too. Your society, your technology, your people. This could be a chance for both our species to learn from each other. Even if what we learn challenges everything we believe." Marcus watched a group of young Nixerans below, practicing combat forms with the fluid grace of their species. Especially then. "The universe is too big for any of us to think we have all the answers." Selena nodded slowly. "Then we begin tomorrow. But be warned, our scientists can be enthusiastic in their pursuit of knowledge." "I'm not worried," Marcus replied, giving her a slight smile. "I have a good protector." As night fell over Luminara, Marcus couldn't help but feel that something profound was shifting in this alien society. And somehow, he had become catalyst for change that had been brewing for centuries. The research facility's bioorganic walls pulsed with a soft blue light as Chief Scientist Nova conducted her experiments. Marcus sat patiently as various scanning devices hummed around him, trying not to feel like a laboratory specimen. 3 weeks had passed since his crash landing, and the Nixeran's fascination with him had only grown. "Remarkable," Nova muttered, studying the holographic displays. "Your endocrine system produces hormones we haven't seen in millennia. The testosterone levels alone could revolutionize our understanding of strength enhancement." "I'm more than just a collection of hormones," Marcus reminded her, catching Selena's eye across the room. The commander had insisted on being present for all testing sessions, though whether to protect him or her people remained unclear. Nova waved her hand dismissively. Of course. But imagine the possibilities. We could reintroduce these traits into our population, strengthen our species and undo centuries of evolution." A new voice interrupted. Counselor Mira Stone strode into the laboratory, her face marked with sharp crimson lines that matched her hardened expression. "Have you all lost your minds?" Selena stepped forward. "Counselor Stone, these are authorized studies Studies that threaten everything we've built." Stone's voice rose with passion. "Look at what his presence has already caused: riots in the lower districts, radical groups preaching about natural order, centuries of stability crumbling." Marcus stood, ignoring Nova's protests about interrupting the tests. "Your society was already changing, Counselor. I'm just a convenient target for those who fear that change." Stone's silver eyes flashed. "You know nothing of our society, alien. We eliminated the chaos of sexual dimorphism, the inefficiency of emotional attachment. We became perfect." "Perfect?" Marcus challenged, moving closer despite Selena's warning look. "Then why do your people still create art? Why do they dance, sing, fight? Why does Commander Dax smile when she thinks no one's watching?" The room fell silent. Selena's hand moved to her energy staff, though whether to defend him or stop him, Marcus wasn't sure. Stone's voice turned cold. "Commander, your attachment to this specimen is concerning. Perhaps someone else should oversee his containment." The lieutenant is not a prisoner, Selina replied, her tone matching Stone's frost. He has proven himself an ally, a warrior. He is a threat. Stone's composure cracked. And there are those who will deal with this threat, with or without the Council's approval. The warning hung in the air as Stone stormed out. Nova fidgeted with her instruments, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. Later, in the relative privacy of the facility's garden dome, Marcus and Selina discussed the implications of Stone's threat. She's not wrong about the unrest, Selina admitted, watching the bioluminescent flowers pulse in rhythm with their footsteps. Your presence has awakened something in our people. Desires, emotions we thought we'd evolved beyond. Marcus studied her profile in the ethereal light. Is that such a bad thing? It is to those in power. Our society maintains order through control, of emotions, of reproduction, of thought itself. You represent chaos, freedom of choice. And what do I represent to you, Commander? Selina turned to him, her expression conflicted. Possibility. And that terrifies me more than any threat Counselor Stone could make. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Nova. Commander, Lieutenant, you need to see this. They rushed back to the lab, where Nova's screens displayed security footage from across the city. Groups of protesters clashed in the streets, some calling for human integration, others demanding Marcus's execution. It's spreading, Nova reported anxiously. The philosophical divide is becoming physical. And there's more. She switched to another feed, showing heavily armed figures moving through the city's maintenance tunnels. Stone's supporters are mobilizing. Selina's training took over. How many? At least 3 squadrons, all with military-grade weapons. They're converging on the research facility. Marcus assessed their options. We need to evacuate. Now. Agreed. Selina activated her command interface. Security team to my location. Initiate Protocol Omega. Nova gathered her research tablets. What about the data? Everything we've learned will mean nothing if we're dead, Selina finished. She turned to Marcus. There's a secure facility in the Crystal Mountains. We can . The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. Through the walls came the muffled sound of explosions. They're here, Marcus said grimly, falling into a defensive stance beside Selina. So much for evacuation. Selina's energy staff hummed to life, its glow reflecting in her silver eyes. Then we fight. Together. As Stone's forces breached the facility's outer defenses, Marcus couldn't help but appreciate the irony. He had come to this world by accident, and now he might die defending it, not because it was his duty, but because in these strange, evolving beings, he had found something worth fighting for. The first attackers burst through the laboratory doors, and the air filled with energy bolts and battle cries. In the chaos, Marcus caught glimpses of Selina moving with lethal grace, her fighting style now incorporating some of the hand-to-hand techniques he had taught her. Whatever happened next would change Nixaran society forever. The only question was whether that change would come through violence or understanding, destruction or growth. As Marcus threw himself into the battle, he prayed they would live long enough to find out. The battle for the research facility had lasted hours, but it felt like minutes to Marcus as he and Selina fought their way through waves of Stone's forces. Nova worked frantically at a console, trying to send a distress signal to the High Council while backing up her research data. Behind you! Marcus shouted, tackling a raider who had tried to flank Selina. They crashed into a bank of monitoring equipment, fighting for control. The Nixaran was stronger, but Marcus had years of close combat training. He managed to knock her unconscious just as another explosion rocked the building. The structural integrity is failing, Nova called out, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. We need to . She never finished her sentence. A massive energy blast tore through the laboratory wall, and Counselor Stone strode in, flanked by elite warriors in black armor. Her crimson facial markings seemed to glow with rage. Enough. Stone's voice carried over the chaos. Surrender the mail, and perhaps some of you will survive this regression into barbarism. Selena stepped forward, her energy staff crackling. You speak of barbarism while attacking your own people? You're proving everything you claim to fear about emotion and violence. I'm protecting our future. Stone raised her weapon, a sophisticated rifle that hummed with deadly power. Can't you see? He's poisoned your mind, corrupted your logic with primitive human concepts of attachment. Marcus moved to stand beside Selena, their shoulders almost touching. Your society was never as perfect as you pretend, Counselor. I didn't create these feelings in your people, I just helped them remember what they'd been forced to forget. A new alarm began to blare through the facility. Nova's eyes widened as she read the incoming data. Multiple ships entering orbit. Earth signatures. They've found us. Marcus's heart leaped. Earth had tracked his emergency beacon, despite the Nixeran shields. But as he saw Stone's expression darken, he realized this could make things infinitely worse. So, Stone snarled, you called for invasion reinforcements. Proof that males bring only destruction. No. Marcus raised his hands. They're here to rescue me, not invade. Please, let me contact them. I can prevent any conflict. The air crackled with tension as Stone considered his words. Above them, through the facility's transparent ceiling, they could see the Earth ships taking up defensive positions around the city. Selena spoke softly, but her voice carried. This is your moment of choice, Counselor. We can meet these humans as a unified people, strong in our evolution but wise enough to learn from others. Or we can let fear destroy everything we've built. For a moment, no one moved. Then Nova's console lit up with an incoming transmission. Earth vessels are hailing us, she reported. And, the High Council is responding. On the main screen, High Counselor Vale's face appeared. Counselor Stone, stand down. Your actions have forced us to accelerate plans we were not yet ready to reveal. She paused, her expression softening. The truth is, we have been watching Earth for some time. Lieutenant Walsh's arrival was unexpected, but it has proven what many of us suspected, our isolation has become a weakness, not a strength. Stone's weapon wavered. You knew? All this time? We knew we needed change, Vale replied. We simply feared it, as you do now. Lieutenant Walsh showed us that fear need not lead to violence. Marcus stepped forward again, addressing both Stone and the High Counselor. Let me talk to the Earth ships. We can turn this crisis into an opportunity for both our peoples. After what felt like an eternity, Stone lowered her weapon. Perhaps I have allowed fear to cloud my judgment. She looked at Selena, then Marcus. The passion with which you defended each other, it reminds me of histories I once read, of how our people used to be. Vale nodded approvingly. Commander Dax, escort Lieutenant Walsh to the communication center. Let us show our Earth visitors that Nixera stands ready for dialogue, not conflict. As they made their way through the damaged facility, Selena caught Marcus's arm. You knew this might happen. That Earth would come looking for you. I hoped they would, he admitted. But I didn't expect to find myself hoping they wouldn't, at least not so soon. Selena's expression softened in a way that would have been impossible when they first met. Because you found something worth staying for? Before Marcus could respond, they reached the communication center. Through the view screen, he could see the Earth ships holding position, their running lights peaceful blue instead of combat red. His worlds were about to collide, and nothing would ever be the same. Ready? Selena asked, her hand hovering over the transmission control. Marcus took a deep breath. Ready to make history. He keyed the communication panel, preparing to bridge the gap between two civilizations that had more to learn from each other than either realized. Earth Command, this is Lieutenant Marcus Walsh. Boy, do I have a story for you. 6 months had passed since the Earth ships arrived in Nixaran orbit. The crystal spires of Luminera now housed a growing Earth embassy, and the streets below buzzed with a mixture of humans and Nixarans. Marcus stood on his favorite balcony, watching the twin moons rise while diplomatic shuttles streaked across the purple sky. Credit for your thoughts? Selena approached, her silver skin catching the moonlight. She had traded her warrior's armor for the formal attire of a cultural exchange officer, though her energy staff remained at her side. Just thinking about how much has changed, Marcus replied. Did you see the new research center Nova opened? Humans and Nixarans working together, combining your biotechnology with our innovative chaos, as she puts it. Selena smiled, a real smile, no longer hidden behind centuries of emotional control. She's not the only one embracing change. Even Counselor Stone has admitted that controlled genetic diversity might benefit our species. The mention of Stone reminded Marcus of the challenges they still faced. Not everyone on either side supported the growing alliance between Earth and Nixara. Some humans feared the advanced biotechnology would make their military obsolete. Some Nixarans still believed contact with males would devolve their society. The protesters are gathering again, Marcus noted, gesturing to a small crowd below. But notice something different? Selena leaned against the balcony railing. They're talking to each other. Humans and Nixarans, disagreeing but discussing. Not fighting. Progress comes in small steps, Marcus said, unconsciously echoing High Counselor Vale's words from the first diplomatic meeting. A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Nova's excited face appeared on a holographic display. Lieutenant, Commander, you need to come to the lab immediately. We've had a breakthrough. They found Nova practically bouncing with enthusiasm, surrounded by complex genetic displays. Other scientists, both human and Nixaran, wore similar expressions of excitement. We've done it, Nova announced. By combining Nixaran reproductive technology with human genetic diversity, we've created a viable method for natural conception while maintaining our species' enhanced traits. Marcus glanced at Selena, seeing the implications hit her. You mean? Nixaran females could choose to bear children naturally again, Nova confirmed. With either human or Nixaran DNA. The children would have the best of both species, our evolutionary advantages, your adaptability. The Council will need time to process this, Selena said softly. It changes everything we thought we knew about our future. Change seems to be the theme lately, Marcus replied, thinking of his own journey. From crashed pilot to diplomatic bridge, from stranger to trusted ally, from human curiosity to something more. Later that evening, they walked through the bioluminescent gardens where they had once fought side by side. New hybrid plants created by joint research teams filled the air with exotic fragrances. A group of young Nixarans practiced nearby, mixing traditional combat forms with human martial arts. Earth Command offered me a promotion, Marcus said suddenly. They want me to head the permanent diplomatic mission here. Selena stopped walking. And? I told them I needed to discuss it with my cultural exchange officer first. He turned to face her. This world, these people, it's all become more than just a mission to me. The old me would have called such attachment inefficient, Selena mused. Now I understand it's what gives life meaning. She reached out, taking his hand in a very human gesture. Stay. Help us build this bridge between worlds. Above them, the stars shone through Nixara's violet atmosphere. Somewhere up there, Earth gleamed like a blue jewel, no longer alone in the cosmic dark. Marcus squeezed Selena's hand, feeling the strength and softness that made her who she was. I used to think crashing here was the worst luck imaginable, he said. Now I realize it might have been the best thing that ever happened to either of our worlds. A new alarm sounded, but this one was different from the warning klaxons of the past. It was the signal for the evening's cultural exchange festival, where humans and Nixorans would share music, dance, and stories. Shall we? Selena gestured toward the celebration lights beginning to illuminate the city. Marcus nodded, still holding her hand. They walked together toward the sound of two species learning to harmonize, their different songs creating something entirely new and beautiful. In the Great Hall, High Counselor Vale was addressing a mixed crowd. Let history remember this time not as when Nixora lost its way, but when we found a new path forward. Together with our Earth allies, we will explore what it truly means to evolve, not by rejecting our past or fearing our future, but by embracing the endless possibilities that lie between the stars. Marcus looked around at the faces in the crowd, silver and pink, marked and plain, all alight with hope and possibility. He had come to this world by accident, but he would stay by choice. Sometimes the greatest adventures weren't about exploring new planets, but about exploring new ways of being human, or Nixoran, or something wonderfully in between.